Today we are going to be discussing how Robert Frost's poem, one of Robert Frost's poems, can be used as a tool to explore different critical theory lenses. So today we are going to be talking about Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. Woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. So today we're going to be exploring different lenses that we can view this whole piece in to explore how we can look at different texts from different perspectives and get different things out of it. Yeah. So, from a formalist lens, or new criticism, this lens focuses entirely on the text itself, its structure, language, and literary devices. Specifically in this, notice the rhyme scheme A, B, A in each stanza, the third line of one stanza linking to the next. In the final stanza, however, all the lines rhyme, all an A scheme rhyme, which creates this sense of closure and echo. The meter is iambic pentameter, da-dum, 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 giving the poem a quiet, musical quality, like a gentle sleigh ride through snow. The woods are lovely, dark, and deep. That line's soft rhythm and descriptive imagery creates a moment of pause, a sense of peace and wonder, but it's followed by "But I have promises to keep." That but introduces conflict between desire and duty. Formalism helps us see how Frost builds mood and meaning through form alone. There's many instances of this contradiction with juxtaposition of different imagery, and it's a really good way to start looking into different conflicting ways that this author uses language. If we want to go into a psychological lens, the psychological lens dives into the mind analysis, analyzing characters, emotions, subconscious desires. A Freudian interpretation might see the woods as a symbol of the id, the part of the psyche driven by desire and instinct. The narrator is drawn to the quiet, dark beauty of the forests, something almost primal, and perhaps even towards rest or death. But he resists this. The superego, the moral consciousness, the thing that is deemed to be civil, reminds him of his responsibilities and draws him back to society. Uh, a Jungian reading of the woods would be one of the shadow self, something of the darker part of ourselves, the unknown part of the psyche. The speaker glimpses this hidden part of himself and turns away from it, choosing the known path, the regular path. This lens invites us to ask what's really pulling him towards the woods, what might be scaring him about the woods. If it's something worrisome, is he avoiding something? Then we really get into kind of the meat of things. The ego-critical lens is one that's really used for this poem in particular. Eco-critical lens explores how literature portrays the relationship between human and nature. Here, Frost paints nature as this silent, still, beautiful, kind of wondrous thing. The woods are mysterious, but comforting, not threatening, despite some of the language that's used. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill with snow. Nature doesn't judge him. He's not being rushed by it. It just exists and yet is this wonderful thing. The speaker doesn't stay, however. He's caught between the peace of the forest and the pull of human society. My little horse must think it queer, thinking that this symbol of kind of modernization, the industrialization of agriculture, that this horse even might be judging the speaker for stopping in this somewhat pastoral place. And this disruption to the civilized routine is seen as somewhat odd, even though the horse is closer to nature than the human would be. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. There's the sentiment that these lines that nature should not be owned, especially by someone far off in the village, not able or willing to appreciate the beauty. There is an idea that there's this separation between man and nature, and this man, this speaker, not gendered, is finding this peace in that space. The language used to describe the woods in many other settings might be considered dangerous or ominous. It's described as darkest, being there as the darkest evening of the year, that the woods are dark and deep, potentially reflecting that the general kind of zeitgeist of the man or the speaker is that the nature might be dangerous or apart from society, and yet he describes it very calmly and enjoys the space, and it describes this duality between what the man or the speaker is experiencing and what society might be aligning as what should be experienced or should be viewed as what nature should be. Eco-criticism helps us see how Frost positions nature as an escape from the modern life's demands and a stillness in a world of motion and chaos. If we want to dip into a Marxist lens, which can be fun, we explore the themes of class, labor, and social structure. Right away, the poem mentions ownership of the woods. Ideally, the woods would not be owned, and yet they are possessed by someone living far off in another village. Um, the speaker feeling that he has no entitlement to this space because it is owned by someone else, feels he cannot linger there, and so does not feel welcome in a space because it is not necessarily his to possess. Um, and at the end of the poem, but I have promises to keep. This speaker repeats this line twice. These promises could represent obligations to work, to production, to serve in a capitalistic society. The speaker may long for rest, which he is very temporarily getting in this space, but otherwise is not able to get, and has to go back to these societies. He has to repeat this line twice almost to convince himself to return to the capitalistic society, one in which he is not valued, one in which he's just a part of the machine. If we want to dip into gender and queer studies, um, this this poem describes a lot of these liminal spaces which gender and queer studies explore as how we create non-binary opportunities to view things. The speaker, assumed to be male by our own biases and by the authorial background, is never actually gendered. The only person gendered in this is the horse. They find themselves in this liminal space, stopped, not quite back to society, and not quite fully immersed in the woods. These woods are lovely, dark, and deep. This could be a moment of vulnerability, a brief escape from the masculine expectations of strength and action and control. But they don't say in the poem, but I have promises to keep. Queer theory often looks at these in between moments where someone steps outside of the normal path only to be pulled back. The woods become a queer space, free, undefined, quietly resisting the demands of society, split between the often female coded Mother Nature and the masculine civilization. The speaker has this repetition of the final lines, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. This might reflect not just exhaustion, but the weight of performing a role that doesn't fully allow space for the wholeness of this speaker. And finally, if we want to go into a little biographical analysis of this poem was written in 1922 after Frost had experienced some personal losses and some bouts of depression. And at the time, he was dealing with a good bit of grief and pressure from his family and the public. Um, and knowing that, we can take these last two lines and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep, as this almost reflection of Frost's own awareness of his impending, life and how he might be viewing death as something that is still so far off, and yet life has so much more to kind of slog through. There's a lot of him contemplating just the beauty of nature and yet having to return to a society that might not value life. And most importantly, we talk about reader response lens and how each of you as poets and learners might be experiencing it for yourself. So give it a read back through and see how you view it. See if maybe one of these lenses fits more with you, and maybe you just experience it from your own perspective and what you bring to it yourself.